What is up in Soccer Week Trusters? You're watching on the YouTube, so hit like and subscribe. Show us some love. We got a game to talk about. U.S. men's national team versus El Salvador. And maybe Charlie Davies was right in our preview show. Let's get after it. Oh,
yes! What is up, everybody? And welcome to Kenny Cooper's favorite podcast at Soccer Week Trust. What's up, Cooper?
I'm Jimmy, the trashy of the trash cans, Conrad, alongside Billy Big Timer, Charlie Davies, who I don't know where the hell he is. Looks like he's in a special trailer for only A-listers, and Hollywood Heath Pearce, who's a little disappointed that Chuck is getting more of the Hollywood treatment than you, Mr. Heath Pearce. Anyway, we have a game, U.S. men's national team. We're going to recap it against El Salvador, big 1-0 win, which means they booked their ticket as the #1 seed in the CONCACAF Nations League semifinals, which means because Mexico could only muster a 2-2 draw against Jamaica at home, they're going to play each other on June 15th in Las Vegas for one of the semifinals, and that is going to be a cracking affair. Very excited about that. And then, of course, if you're watching on the YouTubes, hit like and subscribe. Tell a friend how great our show is. We'd really appreciate that. If you're listening to it on your podcast platform of choice, make sure you download, follow, leave a 5-star review. And you also, we're telling you right now, go tell somebody. And we're up for an award. We're a finalist in the soccer category for the Sports Podcast Awards, and we need your help. So please take a minute out of your day to vote. The link is in the description. And I don't know if Charlie needs any more acclaim, but I think he would appreciate, just a little bit more to continue to validate how special he is as a prognosticator. And I say this, Chuck, I'm going to give you the floor first because you said that Daryl Dike should be cleaning the shoes of Ricardo Pepi in the preview show. He shouldn't start. I said Dike should start. Dike started, didn't do much with the 60 minutes. That's what happens. Didn't take his chance. Pepi comes in 2 minutes later as a sub, scores the winner, and now it's Ricardo Pepi time. So, Chuck, go ahead. Take it away. It's all about you. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy. Me, no. What I will say is the reason why I was so adamant about Ricardo Pepi continuing to get the opportunity was just because he earned it. He's deserved it. He showed it with his play, his movement, his first touch, and just his decisive runs in the box. The reason why he scored that goal was because when Weston McKennie picked his head up, he was playing off the back inside shoulder of the defender, which sets up the run because the defender has to check his shoulder. And when he checks his shoulder, that's the signal for Ricardo Pepi to take off into that space with a bending run. For a midfielder, if you pick your head up and you see your striker giving you that lane with that intention, saying, give it to me now, then you play the ball and it's there for you. So it's all set up by the run. And once he gets into that space, you showed one, he's got enough speed. It's not world-class speed, but enough speed to get in front of the defender. 2, the strength to hold off a Dominguez, the center back who was strong for El Salvador, who gave Daryl Dike a tough time throughout the match. And 3, the clinical finish. It's the light chip over the keeper. I know Heath loves Pepi's finishing game. You've talked about it ad nauseum. So for me, I think Pepi just showed it with his play tonight.
Okay, so Heath, I'm going to throw this to you. I put out a tweet after he scored going, I still can't believe that we didn't take Ricardo Pepi to the World Cup.
Shocking.
It is still shocking, but you were first. One of the first, at least for us in our circle, you were first. You were the conductor of the Ricardo Pepi hype train, and I want you to take your flowers because he is really coming good. He's now scored 6 U.S. men's national team goals. It's the 3rd youngest to ever do it behind Christian Pulisic and Josie Altidore. He clearly has something, and it showed tonight because even if he should have scored maybe another one. Good deflection, first touch to set up a second. The goalkeeper made a great save. He was feeling it, and I think he had something to prove. I don't know if it's just going up against Daryl Dike or if it's also all this noise about Balogun as well. And go ahead, take your flowers. Let's talk about Ricardo Pepi with you.
No, I like Charlie. It's not about taking flowers. I'm just happy to see somebody. I take him on Twitter. Like I'll go all day long with the haters on Twitter around that stuff. But on here, it's mostly just about the fact that again, you see. There's little, it's not even like an if you know, you know. If you watch quality football or quality soccer, you can see something in Ricardo Pepi that you don't see in all of our players, right? In the same way that we look at Serginho Dest at times when he's in form and you go, man, there's something that you don't always see, right? You go out to a park, you watch U15 game, and you see like of a high level tournament, you'll see somebody that just catches your eye and something you feel something, right, when you watch him play. And he's got a little bit of that. His movement, first touch, his confidence. He's still lanky and like it's not like watching Mbappe play, right? Like there's still things about him, but there's just little things that I like about him, and he's got a long way to go. But still, that whether it's a chip on the shoulder, whether it's learning from not making the World Cup team, whether it's this adversity he's going through, I just really like his response, his attitude, and more than anything, just how comfortable and confident he looks out there in and around the goal.
Jimmy,
Okay.
I want to give you your flowers first before we do
I'll
go.
take them.
These are
Yes,
dead
because-
flowers, though, Jimmy, because you
Dead
didn't want Pepi
flowers.
on the field. These are
I
Yeah.
didn't want him on the field. I just
This is
thought that DK deserved
withering
a chance.
flowers.
He deserved the chance
Well,
to start with the first team, and he got it, and he didn't make the most of it.
Yeah, well, Heath, I didn't say there were roses, but
Yeah,
I want to give
I got some
What-
weeds here from Charlie.
Yeah.
what I appreciate and love about us is that the fact that we can say however we're feeling about a certain player, about tactics, about a coach, and we're challenged. And it's not just, okay, you can say that and it's out there. It's why do you feel that way? Give me some evidence. And we, all three of us, can say this is why we believe it, because we've been on the field, we've shared it. I value all of your opinions. I love the fact that you say, all right, why? Why? What makes him different? And why should he get it versus Dike? And I know you just wanted to see Dike get an opportunity because he scored goals in the English Championship. He's finally in form. He's healthy. But I think what we saw tonight and the last game, he came in as a sub, was largely ineffective. Wasn't involved. You can say, oh, everyone's selfish, whatnot. Today he gets the start and was largely ineffective. Pepi came in as a sub in a game against an El Salvador team who is very disciplined, organized tactically. You know whenever you play against El Salvador with Hugo Perez that it's going to be a game because he really prepares for his team against the U.S. Comes in and thank you very much, delivers. And for me, that's the difference between the quality of these two players.
In some ways, and I appreciate you saying that, and that's one of my favorite parts of the show too, is that we can have meaningful conversation about how we're feeling and what we want to see from either particular players or as you said, the tactics of the team overall. For me, I guess I was using Dike as an example there because all of us benefited from getting that one opportunity at some point. Like we got an opportunity. Sometimes it's due to injury. I got into the team because Eddie Pope was hurt, or initially I got in because Danny Califf went over to Europe to go, or leave MLS and go to Denmark or wherever he went, and that opened up a spot for me just to get into camp. And then from there, as you start to work your way in, you have to get an opportunity at some point. And I just thought that Dike needed that when to your point, when he was in form, when he was scoring goals, and he got it with the first team. There were 7 guys that started tonight for us that started all 4 games of the World Cup. It's not going to get any better or look any better. I know that we don't have Tyler Adams. Maybe some guys are in a little bit of a different spot or having different asks, but if he can't perform around that type of talent, then to your point, maybe he just doesn't fit in with this group. Maybe he's better suited playing with West Brom where he is, where the style suits him a little bit more, built around him, as opposed to, it seems like our style is built around some of the other players, and that's fine. But Ricardo Pepi comes in and makes an immediate difference. And I think it might be a while for Daryl Dike gets another start, but he got his chance. Heath, and I think that
the field,
that's all I was looking for, and he didn't make the most of it. Okay, cool. Then we got to not necessarily move on, but we have to move to figuring out, okay, you're not the best fit for us at this particular time.
I will say, and we've all experienced this, right? This is the other hard part about a game, of how fluid a game is. In the second half, the U.S. is playing far better, with much more urgency, much more just sort of like emphasis in what they wanted to do. And you could feel that momentum shift from the start of the second half, right? And when you're Daryl Dike, you're like, man, we were just getting going. And we've all been in that situation before where you come off and you're like, dude, this was a dud of a first half. Second half is better. Game's opening up. Obviously, El Salvador can only keep that discipline for so long because they do need to go out and try to get a result at a certain point. So maybe they play a little bit more stretched out to try to get to the semifinals. And that opens up that space for Dike, right? For Pepi, if you're Dike, you're thinking through that lens of like, man, got shafted again, to be honest, right? But he didn't do anything in the moments that he had.
I've been there. Yeah. I've been there.
But when
you get replaced and the guy scores who took your spot.
But take the goal away, right? If Pepi didn't score, I still would have liked how active he was. And it's the things that I like about his game have far little to do with his natural finishing ability, because I do think he's good, especially now that he's confident. It's the fact that almost every time he checks off, he plays simple. He checks off, he brings the ball down in tough areas. He brings other players into the game around him. And I'm going to keep on saying that until people realize that those are aspects of his game that are different than other players. He doesn't slow down the speed of the attack when the ball comes to him. He keeps that pace going. He has a rhythm to his game and a confidence in his first touch and bringing other players in that I just really like. That if I look at that half or the 30 minutes that he did, I don't know if he lost the ball at all, other than like shots, trying to create goals. He lays the ball off. He like time and place, and he seems to understand that at a really young age, which I like.
Well, let's talk about the first half because, and this is hardcore analysis for everybody, it was poo-poo. It was not good. And I think what's interesting, and what I was thinking about when I was watching the game was our, like, if I'm snapping my fingers in terms of pace, it's just too slow. Right. And we needed to pick that up. And we did at the end of the first half, a little bit more urgency. Weston should have scored on that set piece, the header. I think he thought he was going to get some contact, and Alex Roldan just decided not to touch him at all. And he heads it wide. But I just feel like we lacked a little bit of that. And that was addressed immediately. Also, I thought that Gio Reyna was playing a little bit too deep. When he picks up the ball that deep, I just feel like he's not as effective as he can be. We need him in a little bit higher, a little bit more connected to the 9, whoever that may be. Or if Pulisic comes inside, he can find that space, and that's where he found a good ball where he did combine with Christian, got it back, and he ended up hitting the post at the start of the second half. I'd like, that's where I feel like Gio's a little bit more dynamic when he can just stay in the fringes and pick his spots as to where he wants to go. And I just thought maybe he was a little bit too deep in the first half. That's maybe what the game was dictating. I thought we played into El Salvador's hands a little bit. I think they were really well organized. I don't want to take anything away from Hugo Perez and his team. I think they saw what happened with Granada, that we just got overrun on the left side for Granada. And so they addressed that. But I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on the first half because, as I mentioned, we had 7 World Cup starters out there, and it just looked a little disjointed. And Charlie, I'll come to you first.
Charlie, you go ahead. Before you talk, though, Jimmy, can we acknowledge Charlie's home and away form in terms of his outfits? He's got his gold Daytona on. He's got a little bit of that flavor to him that, oh, look, he just showed it again.
He showed his watch. He just flexed it.
Wow.
Flexed it again.
Like, that's when I know Charlie's like home Charlie, and this is Charlie's away kit is like, oh, he's got something going.
I'm surprised he doesn't have like an Emmy award or something in that little spot there in the corner. Like,
I'm just shocked that
for a trophy.
I'm just shocked that CBS and Paramount Plus bought him this Madden Cruiser that takes him everywhere, and he's able to just basically sleep in this.
There it is.
Oh man,
here we go.
Oh wow,
he's borrowing somebody else's trophy from whatever trailer he's in right now, but it's looking really good. That green room is fantastic.
Yeah.
Chuck, talk to us about the first half though, because obviously the second half ended on a high note.
All right, Heath. Let me tell you.
Here we go, the slapping.
Hey.
Charlie's got one arm that's 6 inches longer than the other just because that watch is so heavy. Hey, those win bonuses were good back in the day, weren't they?
Yeah,
Took care of you. I like that.
Clearly.
No, what I will say is we both know, all three of us, that when you play against El Salvador, when you win the ball, you have to be direct. There has to be an aggression, and you have to score early because their whole game plan is to delay, and then they recover quickly. They get numbers behind the ball, and you're playing against Hugo Perez, who's very tactically aware of how to expose the U.S. and how to make it difficult for the U.S. So you saw early in the first half, they said, Tim Ream, we're going to invite them high up the field. We're going to sit back, and we're just going to play long balls in behind. We're going to test his pace. We're going to see how fast Miles Robinson can cover for him. That was the game plan, and it worked. It was pretty effective in the beginning because the U.S. would come up forward, then they'd be like, oh, we got to all bust our butts back to get behind the ball. I think for the U.S., it was too slow. When you took an extra touch, then you allowed 2-3 El Salvador players to get back. So we saw in the first half, if you're not playing quick with intention to go to goal directly, which I know the U.S. players talked about, oh, we can take our time. We don't have to rush. There's a time and space for that on the pitch. Against El Salvador at home, you have to go and score quick. That is how you break them, because then you force them to come out. And if they can keep it close for as long as they did, you're really suiting El Salvador. And they had some quality chances. Had they had
Matt Turner had a save there 2 minutes in again. Yeah.
If they had a capable goal scorer, one that was really a top-notch striker in CONCACAF, this could have been a different game.
Okay, and Heath, how about you? Because there's a really fun fact about our record against El Salvador, and it's pretty ridiculous, where we have the longest unbeaten streak against them than any other opponent in our history, which is 22, 17 wins now and five draws. So despite them kind of giving us a hard time and us kind of just getting slim victories or results against them, we don't lose to them more often than not.
No, and that's the matter of, like Charlie said, you come down to those moments where there's just, at times, they even got advantages in the second half where you see them attacking with equal numbers or even numerical advantages, and it kind of just falls flat, you know. And I think there's a lack of that next level of quality within that squad right now. But if it wasn't for a lack of that, like Charlie said, it could be a different game. You know, there was a few kind of wake up moments for us that I think shouldn't happen in a game like this. But again, second half very different than the first half. First half, just as Charlie mentioned, really flat, kind of lackluster, not on the same page, not a sharpness in passing, not an urgency to like sort of be sharp and combine. And just a rude awakening from, like, obviously playing against a Granada, which there's going to be gaps and spaces and everybody's confident and everybody wants to do better. That was just a good response in the second half, I think, which was great to, as a sort of response from the first half going into halftime. Second half, great response to start the half that way, but not what I expect from this team and the quality that they have in the first half. Just not really, really disappointing, because there wasn't one player that I could have been like, they were good in the first half. It was just kind of flat.
Yeah, collective. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about Daryl Dike. He was one of the new starters in this game. Let's talk about Alejandro Zendejas, another attacking player. Got the start, scored against Granada. Really well taken goal. He had a couple moments early on where I thought he had a couple of good dummies that kind of broke Serginho Dest into some space, but not as effective. I mean, busy, trying to do some things, but not as effective. So I'm going to go to our resident hunk over there with like his $15,000 watch, Charlie Davies, and talk to us about.
My guy doesn't do 15. Come on now.
Sorry, so I didn't see all the diamonds on there.
Jeez Louise, 15? Yeah, 15 when he bought it like 22 years ago. You know what I mean? Yeah, you add inflation to that, Charlie. You know what I mean? Got yourself a little mortgage on your
Zendejas. Let's talk about Zendejas. He's
that
clearly
appreciation's real.
Yeah. So Zendejas, does he earn the next start? Do you feel like it's just Gio Reyna that needs to be in that spot? Taylor Booth came on a little bit later. You could see a little bit of what makes him go, and he's got some ideas and takes some risks, which I like. But let's focus on Zendejas right now.
Yeah, I'd say Zendejas as a whole, and I'm looking at both matches, first match and second match. If you're grouping those together, it's encouraging because he's different, and you want flexibility, you want different ideas for different opponents. This is probably not a player who's going to start every single match, but in terms of, we need a winger who can come inside to offset the other team and unbalance the other team, then yeah, I like that. He's good on the ball. He's confident. But for him to be effective in this match, then you need Serginho Dest to be really high up the pitch because he comes inside. And Serginho Dest, we saw, looked rusty. I mean, he got himself in good spots, but he wasn't as decisive as we saw last year. He wasn't as clean as he was last year. I think he would have been a little bit more aggressive going to goal, getting to the end line, whipping balls in. That was not what we saw from Serginho Dest today. And I think the lack of him and his fitness and his form, I think applied to Zendejas a little bit today, because if he has to break down 2-3 El Salvador players and the blocks, they were in deep blocks. It's not as easy as a Granada who's unorganized, rushing all over the place, opened up. That plays into his hands. I would have liked to see him take a little bit more shots today, because if you are playing against a team that's sitting deep, the one way to get them to come out a little bit more and create some more space is by taking shots. He had a nice goal against Granada. In this game, I think it would have suited him to take a little bit more shots and be a little bit more proactive when he was in possession. I think he deferred a lot in this game, and that was because he's playing with Christian and Gio Reyna, and he wanted to make sure that, like anyone coming into a new team, hey, I know you guys have been here for a while. You guys can make decisions. Let me add value and not so much take the initiative. I think that's going to probably change in the future as he gets more comfortable and guys get used to how he plays. But this is a player that deserves to be in the group. You can see that. But as far as a certified starter, like I said from the beginning, he's not a guaranteed starter in this team. And you look at Aaronson, you look at Taylor Booth. I know Booth probably still has a little ways to go, but Aaronson's another player, and then Timo Weah is another player. So there are a number of different players with different qualities, and I think ultimately will make the group better.
I think what's interesting, and I'm going to use Zendejas as an example, but I think this goes for all of our wingers. I don't know if I see them, and now I'm thinking specifically about Zendejas. Did he connect any passes to Dike? Was there any looking into that passing lane to see if it was on? Maybe it wasn't on, but I don't feel like, and I know he said this a few podcasts ago, and it's still sticking in my frontal lobe here, that I don't know if we do a good enough job of bringing our attacker or number 9 into the attack consistently. And that pass would allow that to happen a little bit more often. All right, we'll talk about that.
Wait. Before you say anything, I know you just said that, but my rebuttal to that is, look how long it took Pepi to get involved in this game.
Sure. And a good entry pass from Weston McKennie. That's from a central midfielder, but I'm still from our winger perspective. I feel like that pass is on sometimes, and I don't know if we're looking enough for it. Now, it's not always on the wingers. Sometimes it's on our striker. I remember there was one movement where I saw Dike who could have run into the space, one of the outside backs, so the other center back had stepped up, and he didn't. And I could see the frustration. I don't know who was on the ball at the moment, but I could see them being like, dude, make the run, and they had to play it backwards. And I could see everybody being a little bit frustrated with that. All right, we're going to take our first break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, we're going to let Heath talk. So don't go anywhere.
Absolutely magisterial here.
Artilharia do Campeonato Brasileiro. Colpisce ancora. Golazo.
All right, you In Soccer We Trusters, if you like us, then you're a fan of the European game, as well as your domestic league or wherever you like to watch the beautiful game. Make sure to check out another great pod then in the CBS Sports podcast family called The House of Champions with our friends Ian Joy, Fabrizio Romano, Nigel Rio-Coker, Michael LaHoo, James Ben, Jonathan Johnson, and they're unpacking the biggest games and storylines from the top 5 leagues and the greatest competition on earth, the Champions League, and beyond. House of Champions has you covered. So go download and subscribe to the House of Champions podcast anywhere you find this one. That would mean a lot to us, like giving us a high five to our little brother. I don't know if I said little brother, but we're probably the little brother in that whole thing. Anyway, welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Trash Can, along with Hollywood and Chuck Wagon, and we are getting after it. We're talking a little Alejandro Zendejas in the U.S.'s 1-0 win over El Salvador. They get the top spot in their Nations League group, which means they've booked their ticket to the semifinals, and they just happen to play against Mexico. That'll be June 15th in Las Vegas. That will be a very fun and very tasty affair for sure. Heath Pearce, we didn't let you talk about Zendejas, but I also want to get kind of your player of the match in general. There was another one, Miles Robinson, who's making his first appearance for the national team in over a year after he tore his Achilles, and I thought he was fantastic, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll let you decide who you want to go with after I hear your thoughts on Zendejas.
Oh, yeah, and did you see that little gold hand Charlie travels with? You know, it says 2 because that's the amount of strikers Charlie wants to see on our national team on the field at all times. You know? And in case of emergency, break this and it's like play with 2 strikers. You know, have more players in and around the ball. But no, I think obviously I'd love to give it to Ricardo Pepi just because you come on, you make an impact, you score the goal. Generally, we know who a sponsor is going to give that to. And I thought he was really impactful of just continuing to create that attack. I thought it took a while to get Christian Pulisic going. I thought both left side and right side kind of struggled to be on the same page. And we've seen that a lot in our national team of finding that rhythm, right? You watch club games and you see a little bit of that timing of like when a winger comes inside and a fullback goes high and just that constant of just changing the angles. In that case, I like Robinson. I like the shout. I thought the center backs are both good on the night, at least on the ball, but I have to give it to Ricardo Pepi. Jimmy, actually, I have a question for you.
Okay.
To send it back. You know, Charlie said this at the top of the show about, oh yeah, we can disagree with each other. When you were talking about Miles Robinson not making the 22-man or 23-man roster for the last game, right?
Yes.
Sitting out, and you're like, well, they must be saving him. I thought you were insane. I've never, ever experienced where coaches completely just save somebody. Like, generally, I would have at least thought, okay, he's in the squad, you don't play him, but like he gets a little bit of that feeling again, and then maybe you play him the next one. But you had him either you had some inside information,
Yeah.
or you had a guy go from not in the squad to starting in the classic like save his legs type of thing, where you're like, no, he could save his legs on the bench, but at least he's experiencing being in the lineup.
Listen, I think I was the only one of us.
Heath.
I was the only one that also called Daryl Dike starting this one.
I
listen. I don't have any insider information.
Yeah,
I
right.
guess I was just.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I was very
and
excited
Heath was
to
the one
Miles
having
Robinson.
coffee with the coaches, right?
You know what? I can't confirm or deny if I.
Well, yeah, when I said that on the show, Jimmy already knew because those coaches were texting him saying, "Hey, I ran into this guy Heath Pearce or something like that at the coffee shop." And Jimmy was like, "Yeah, I know the guy." You know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised to see Miles start, especially with this team with a lot of experience and guys coming off the World Cup and that kind of trust from Anthony Hudson is important. And I thought what I liked the most is that he grew stronger as the game went along. He started to win all of his one-on-one battles a lot more cleanly. Not only win them, but when he won the ball, then he'd make a nice pass forward. He started to eliminate the safe pass, unless that was the only one on, and try to define those ones that would break the lines.
Jimmy, rank the center backs in order of the past 2 games.
Ooh,
ask me about the fullbacks next. Go ahead.
Okay. This is a good question. So for everybody that wanted, because Chuck's audio is like, it's like you're in an echo chamber or like a cave.
He's in the Madden Cruiser. He's fine.
Sorry, he's in the Madden Cruiser.
It's literally moving right now to his next destination. You know what I mean? We talked
true.
about having
Where are you
having
going
his
next?
own driver. Now he's got his own motorhome driver, which is
You
nice.
can't even tell that it's moving. That's how clean and smooth that is.
Oh, I know.
All right, Chuck. So Chuck says, rate the center backs over these last 2 games. Tim Ream is solid. The guy's so just quietly good, and his passing's excellent. I actually like Miles' defending better. I'll throw that into the mix.
Now, last game, Trusty was the better of the 2.
Over McKenzie, yeah. I would say that these 2 tonight played a better opponent and were a little bit more solid than the other 2. So I would probably go. I really liked Miles tonight, but maybe my bar was a little bit lower because we hadn't seen him in a while, and I haven't caught too many Atlanta United games. The one that he missed, they gave up 4 goals, which really kind of speaks to his influence, especially in the back line, or 5 goals or 6 goals. I don't know how many goals they gave up to the Crew, but oh man, I want to say Miles first, Tim Ream second, Trusty third, and Mark McKenzie 4.
And then outside backs for Heath?
Ream first and Miles Robinson second. It's like flipping a coin, but I was just really happy to see Miles back and such a force that when you see him playing that way, like, man, what would he look like if he had been healthy and playing for us at the World Cup? I don't know. Heath, what about outside backs?
No, I mean, again, I know where you're coming from, Jimmy, because it's really hard. Like you have to judge it on a handicap based on the opponent, right? Because
you have to.
Especially for our fullbacks, where you're like always like today they were tested more in areas where you had to be sharp, you had to play quick, you had to have ideas. But I expect that from our best fullbacks, and neither of them did that. So they fall on the depth, like based on this camp, based on performances. I've got Scally, and then I've got Scally. Reynolds is number 2. Again, I thought he has a long way to go, but just Dest in terms of it's really hard to take the bias of like what I know he can do versus what he did. He wasn't bad, but like just doesn't look sharp. And obviously,
Did you see when he tried to do that no-look pass and it got cut out in the middle of the field?
He did do another no-look pass though. That was pretty sick. That was
I know.
Clean
It's the high risk, high reward guy, and I love that about him. But
and this one was just like a simple combination play up near the top of the box. But and then Jedi Robinson just looks tired, to be honest with you. He's been on the grind.
Slow.
Yeah, he's been on the grind. He looked slow to react, slow to get forward. He almost rarely saw him bomb forward in the way that he did before. Just sort of almost what I liked about his game generally was not today, but he usually pins back a winger, forces them to have to defend really early on, right? Chase him constantly. And if you're a winger, that gets annoying after a while where you either got to start cheating forward, or if he's winning that battle, you got to play honest and track him back a bunch of times. And that usually sets that battle on good footing for him to win that 1v1 battle. But he just kind of looks tired, a little bit off the mark. And we've seen him over the last couple of months just sort of look like he's struggling to find the rhythm of the match, of the game, of the moment, and his passes are off and someone's running diagonal, he's playing it inside, or vice versa, and those sort of things. He just sort of looks off a beat. That looks like he just needs a break. So they both dropped in my in my book. So I'm going to go with those other two.
Interesting.
Not necessarily just
we gave up a goal against Granada. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, we did. But like, again, it's a hard thing to judge like game to game because they're two completely different matches.
Sure. All right, let's skip midfield for now. We'll do that one collectively. Let's go to the front three. Charlie, how would you rank the front three in these last two games?
Yeah, I don't think Christian had a great game today, but he was phenomenal in the first one. Obviously, you look at the opponent and the tactics of the opponent. So, man, Pepi was good. So I'm going to go with Pepi as 1, just because as a striker, your main responsibility is to finish and make
3
good
goals
runs.
in 2 games.
So he's 1 for me. Pulisic is 2. 3 is Zendejas. 4 is Aaronson.
Ooh.
And then, I guess Gio Reyna is an attacking midfielder. Today, in the second half, he was much better, but largely, you felt like he was carrying the pressure with him. That's what it felt like to me, because the moments that we saw in the second half today, you're saying, I need that more often. You have it in you. If you want to do it, it's very simple. You can do it. Just take over the game. You have that ability. But it feels like he was just kind of cruising. He was getting, wasn't really giving it what that position needs from him. And for me, I'm always going to have my expectations for him super high, because we know how good he can be and how good he is. And it's similar to Christian. Sometimes it's unfair that you have that much quality, but at the end of the day, you need to deliver. And we just didn't see enough of Gio Reyna's ability over these 2 matches. Now, obviously, these are just 2 matches, but we need to see more progress from him. And I hope the next round, which is going to be most likely against Mexico, he shows up and we see that second half in the first 10 minutes, that Gio Reyna every single time.
Yeah, I'm. What about Dike? So Dike's what, bottom on your list?
Yes.
Yeah. And Taylor Booth, now like no rating, didn't play enough, I guess, would kind of fall into
Yeah. I mean, he'd be slightly above Dike. So.
Oh man, Dike.
Taylor Booth does look like he's got something in him though. Like you see little tiny touches and things like that. And if you watch it, again, I'm judging more off the club than in his camp, but like Dike just looks like, again, people ask, like, is he not international quality? I think he'll always, as long as he's scoring goals, he'll be knocking on the door of this pool, because you always need a different dynamic of strikers in your pool. You can't have them all be the same type of striker, but he's got a ways to go, I think.
What I think what you're trying to say is, as long as you're scoring goals with your club, you'll be a candidate for the group. But when you say international quality, that's a difference maker. That's somebody who can step on the pitch and not just play against CONCACAF opponents, Granada, Cuba, Dominican Republic, El Salvador. We're talking can play in a Copa America against an Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, and have success.
Man,
sound like you're talking about me, man. It's crazy.
I don't know.
International quality. Sounds like a left back that did like 35 games with the national team, played in some big tournaments, like that kind of guy, like that consistency. Most caps in 2008 type of guy. You know what I mean?
I feel like Jordy Pifok just took a stray right now. I don't know.
Jordy Pifok. But I think what I'm trying to say is that it's not that Dike is never going to be international quality striker. It's just right now he has a ways to go to develop into that player. And it's one thing to score goals in the championship. It's another thing to be an effective striker with this group. And the qualities that is needed as a 9 in this group is to be able to make runs, to open up space, to be able to hold up the ball, but also to sense when a striker needs to get some touches, build some confidence so that the center back has to come out now and follow you because you can run at some players. Also, play some balls into the channels. Like being able to be diverse and different and not so one-dimensional. And for me, Dike is all one-dimensional right now. That's not saying he can't be multi-dimensional and a threat in different ways. But right now,
Chuck doesn't like Daryl Dike. I think
I know
that's what he's saying.
I almost Chuck hates Daryl Dike. If Chuck had a T-shirt on right now, it might say that. But the truth is like we are critical of Daryl Dike, but let's not forget about the player pool that we have at striker position. Pifok was indifferent in a lot of performances, right? We saw Ferreira indifferent in a lot of performances. Ricardo Pepi indifferent in a lot of performances in big moments during qualifying, right? We saw a number of guys that were just indifferent, completely indifferent in terms of their impact on games consistently, which is why this conversation is still going. You go back into certain other generations, you had your striker, at least, might not be the guy, but it was at least a separation from the others to know like who our strikers were.
And that's why we all want to see Balogun come to play for the US. That's why everyone is so hyped about Balogun, because he has all of those different qualities, and he's scoring it in Liga, which is a super difficult league. He's among the top goal scorers. So to have that type of player, along with your Ricardo Pepis and your Josh Sargents and your Jordy Pifoks or Haji Wrights and Daryl Dikes, you have a number of different options, but this is an elite striker with a high ceiling and someone that's a game changer for this group.
Well, I can't wait till Balogun commits and then he has an indifferent performance with you too, because you guys are just going to lose your shit.
No.
Like, what does this Balogun guy do? I can't even connect with these guys. Can't even hold the ball. What are they doing?
I'll be like this.
All right. So before we move on to our second break, let's talk about the midfielders then in terms of who stood out. Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, Luca De La Torre. Johnny Cardoso had a cup of coffee there at the very end against El Salvador, so he won't be rated, but I guess we have 3 to choose from. How are we ranking those guys? Weston McKennie scored 2 goals. Should have scored again tonight. Didn't, but had the assist to Ricardo Pepi. But had some moments of maybe being a little bit out of position, maybe trying to do too much. That's what I love about him, though. You don't want to take what he loves about the game away from him. But if you are filling in at the 6, or if you're trying to do a different position, sometimes less is more. That's what I would say there. Yunus Musa.
Midfielder.
Yeah, Weston was.
Yeah, Weston was
well, he's got the numbers to back it up too. Eunice, I thought was quiet. He came over to Anthony Hudson like 16 minutes into the game to like either get some water or get some. I was like, oh my God, Yunus Musa's on the field. I didn't even know he's on the field. So
but there's a couple times when he gets the ball and
I get it.
Technique and confidence on the ball when he looks at 3 players defending in front of him and goes, I'm gonna go past you, first of all, and then I'm gonna go to the next guy and I'm probably gonna beat you, and then I'm gonna find the next pass. You're like, oh my God. That kid's got something insane in terms of his ability to just explode in and out of tight spaces. But what I will say on the midfielders is that we should probably be looking into our pool of players right now, figuring out who is our next number 6. Because if Tyler Adams is not always available, I do not think we have a solution. I'm going to chuck a name out there. If you've been watching Major League Soccer so far, Aiden Morris, probably the best 6 in the league right now, young player. And I think he might not be there yet. But I'm thinking through that right now about who's the next 6, because we need somebody coming through. We can't just I think we've learned through this pool of players that you cannot just drop a 6 is a specialty position now, especially in the way that we play, that we need somebody. And it's not De La Torre, and it's not Weston McKennie, and it's not Yunus Musa. It's a different type of profile. And again, I don't think we have that right now.
Okay. I agree with you. I think that is definitely a big conversation to have. And we should get one of the coaches on. Invite them next time you go to coffee, Heath, and see if they'll come on the show. Chuck, what are you saying? I'm feeling like you're going Weston, then Luca De La Torre, then Yunus. Is that where you're leaning? Because I thought De La Torre was good, solid, no problem. I mean, the Granada game, it's so hard for me to evaluate that one because it's just because the pace of that game was so slow, and when he played safe, that pissed me off a little bit. Like, dude, you could break the line,
But Luka plays pretty safe also now. Even when he advances, he still ends up playing the ball square, even if he moves the ball.
Well, there's some value in that if you're trying to keep it a little bit. I like at times we're not always in a rush to hit the home run pass, but there are times where I'm like, dude,
he's the guy at the poker table that checks every time it gets to him, dude. Just like, you know what I mean? Like, put some chips in the middle and let's play.
Is he a check raiser? Check. He'll check raise. He's a check raiser.
Yeah. I'll match.
Okay. Yeah, I'll match. Chuck, what are you saying?
I'll go McKennie as number 1. I think over the past 2 matches, on being available and dangerous on set pieces, the pass to Ricardo Pepi, there were just some good tackles he made. For me, he did well over these 2 matches.
Yeah,
now, of course.
When you compare it to the other 2, it's pretty clear.
Yes. I think Luca De La Torre would be number 2 just because we know how good Yunus Musa is, and he was very underwhelming for what he can be. Given that, there are still those moments where you go, that boy's special. That boy is special. But
and you're not saying that about Luca De La Torre.
No.
He's solid.
He's a good player, but he's not a he'd always be, if you had a midfield trio, he's always that third player. He's not the attacker, he's not the defender, he's just that player who can keep possession, who makes good decisions, who you don't really have to worry about, but he's not going to win you matches. And he's not going to save you matches in terms of making a huge recovery run. But what he is, he's going to add quality, he's going to keep the ball, he'll be able to switch the point of attack. He's a cerebral player. But I think over these 2 matches, that would be my ranking for the trio.
Yeah, I like that. He's the connective tissue. And I think that's an important role. We need those guys on the field too. It helps balance out everybody else. All right, we're going to take our second and last break of In Soccer We Trust. When we come back, apparently Brendan Aaronson sat down to do an interview, and he has some thoughts about Greg Berhalter. You don't want to miss these, so come back and join us right after this.
Welcome to the UEFA Europa League on Paramount Plus.
What a night!
Your home for more ultra-competitive, world-class soccer, where Europe's elite and soccer's Cinderellas pump out that one-of-a-kind white-knuckle excitement that grows with every cut, every cross, and each and every... The UEFA Europa League. Stream every match live exclusively on Paramount Plus.
All right, In Soccer We Trusters, don't miss a second of action from the greatest club competitions on earth, the Champions League and the Europa League, and maybe one day the Europa Conference League. And follow the biggest stars from the world of soccer like Vinicius Jr., Victor Osimhen, Erling Haaland, Marcus Rashford, and Angel Di Maria as they try to clinch continental glory. Stream every match from the Champions League and the Europa League, and maybe one day the Europa Conference League. Live only on Paramount Plus, so you can try 1 month free with promo code ADVANCE. So go make that happen. The promo code is ADVANCE. All right. Welcome back. Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Heath Pearce. And I teased that Brendan Aaronson had an interview where he said some things about Greg, and it was a tease because he actually didn't say much at all. Here's his quote. I can't say much about the whole situation, but I think Greg was amazing for the time that he was here. The record doesn't lie. I think winning 2 trophies was huge for the team, and he had a really great thing with the group, and he was really good for the guys. But listen, I can't say much, and whatever happens, happens, like I like to say. You should run for office, Heath Pearce.
Yeah. Good political answer. I think,
answer.
It's he does have solid stats and you can't deny those, but there also isn't like I think you're obviously seeing some different perspectives of players. And I know some of the rigidity and expectations, I guess, of the players made it a pretty big challenge at times under Greg in terms of the intensity that he wanted, the way he wanted to press, things like that. So you can see why certain players are interested in maybe another coach or another option. The question is who. That's the hardest part. Is like, we've got. I am lacking confidence in the ability to go and get a sporting director, a GM, and a coach that are going and not even in a 3-month span, but that can get to work right away. And
I heard Julian Nagelsmann is in Chicago right now.
You lying?
You're lying. He's still lying. I mean, he'd be younger than Tim Ream. I don't know if that would be the right shout. Maybe Tim Ream can coach this. All right, here's a quote for you from Brendan Aaronson, Chuck. He said, it's been ups and downs. This is on his post-World Cup form. It's been ups and downs. I think that maybe the World Cup didn't help me that much because I didn't play 90 minutes each game like I was playing at Leeds. I understood that. I knew my role at the World Cup, but I think that it might have slowed me down. I might have even been tired from it at the time because I flew 15 hours home after the World Cup and only had 5 days off and then had to go back and report to Leeds. So that was pretty tough. I haven't had a lot of time off, so it's been hard, but I think it's only making me stronger and only making me better, and I think I've become mentally stronger because of it. There is something to be said about that post-World Cup tournament or any kind of big moment in your life and coming down from that and not really having the time to process all of it. And I think if I'm reading between the lines, the underlying message, that's what it feels like a little bit, Chuck.
Yeah, that's exactly what we said. That the World Cup took a lot out of him because he was playing with this confidence early with his days at Leeds. And then you go to the tournament and you go from playing in the Prem where coaches are saluting your performances, that you're, known as a guy who's active and getting on the ball and causing problems, you're scoring against Chelsea, to not playing in the World Cup. That can't be any more deflating as a young player with the potential and the upside. and you go back to your club, no vacation, all the travel, and you're a little bit depressed. That takes away from you. It takes a while to get out of that funk. But the way he's handled it, first class. Because the only thing you can do is just put your head down, keep working, and hopefully get out of that situation. And it seems like right now he's finally finding his feet again. So that's been good to see. I got nothing but positive things to say about Brenden Aaronson as a player and a person.
Yeah, he seems like a total pro, and not that that's a big surprise for us that have been around him, but it's one thing that's to say, oh, I can handle bad times. It's another thing to actually walk through them and handle them with the type of class that he's showing both at the club and national team level. Good that he scored against Grenada. I think that's going to be good for his confidence, Heath Pearce, but maybe not as effective tonight. He did have some counter pressing that he won the ball and ultimately set up an attack for us. But outside of that, it still feels like, what's his best position? And I think I say that for both his club and the national team. How do we get the most out of him in a way that really plays to his strength so he can get back to being confident? Because when we have a confident Brenden Aaronson on our hands, we've got an excellent player.
Well, similarly, I think we're building specialist type of players, right? I don't think Brenden Aaronson is going to be our star in any system. He's not going to be our big player in any system. He is going to be hugely beneficial in certain systems for us. And if we're not going to play those types of systems, then he's probably not going to be, I'm saying this where he's at now, right? He can certainly, he can certainly climb and become better and better and better at other parts of his game, which we know he's continuing to do, considering the leaps he's taken from his Philadelphia Union days. But he is a player that's strongest assets fit within a certain type of game. And I think that's as a winger. I think that's in a counter-pressing team, a team that presses high up the field. Now, whether that translates to a national team, who knows? But at the club level, you can look at a Brenden Aaronson and you start to go, well, what's his next club? You could predictably say the type of club he should probably go to next, right? If it's not a Leeds or whatever, it's going to be similar to that. It's going to be similar to energy drink soccer, you know, that the counter-pressing type of game that exists out there. And so I think him as a player, he's a fantastic player. Now, whether or not that translates to how we play in the national team, I think is TBD long-term because of the type of player he is. And we have a number of players. Serginho Dest is another one that we talk about all the time of just going like, does he fit? Are we going to play to his strengths, or is he going to have to play straight up in a national team differently than perhaps he would play at a club team that maybe has possession all the time, or, you know, where, I mean, he's not even making the 18 or the, you know, the whatever now at his club team level. But I think those specialty types of players don't necessarily translate to automatic starters in our national team anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see it all plays out, especially we got Timo Weah on our hands, who's another player who's playing left back or right back for his club team in France, but obviously has been an excellent winger, scored a great goal against Wales in the World Cup to prove how efficient and effective he can be. So it'll be interesting to see whoever comes in and coaches us in a more meaningful way than the interim job that Anthony Hudson is doing at the current moment. Let's evaluate Anthony Hudson then really quick before we talk about the other CONCACAF Nations League matches and any other final thoughts that we have for today's show. Anthony Hudson, Chuck.
Give him the job. End of discussion. Give him the job, Jimmy.
Yeah, come on, Heath. Come on. You can't give him the job.
Change my voice so it sounds like
Charlie. No, you can't. You can't give him the job.
Let's quote Charlie as saying that, though, when we go.
Yes, let's get that. Let's clip that and let's overdub Charlie's voice.
Yeah.
So Chuck, Anthony Hudson, obviously in the January camp, didn't win a game, but in 2 games here, Grenada, I expect that. El Salvador, obviously, we have this tremendous record against El Salvador in general, but he put out a pretty good lineup. But if we're just looking at El Salvador, I thought he made the subs at the right time. Obviously, Pepi comes on and scores right after, has an immediate impact. Your thoughts on Anthony Hudson?
I think he's doing a great job as a caretaker. As an interim manager, I think he's doing a great job. I'd say January camp was probably one of those times where he's learning as the first time. Where
Charlie's giving him the stepdad vibes, dude. Just like, you know, he'll never really be dad, but like, you know, he's doing a great job playing the role.
He got me some ice cream and I don't usually get some. You know?
Hey, I'm keeping it real. So I think it was a learning curve for him being the boss. In January, I think he took a step forward in this camp. The first game, obviously, just inferior opponent, but took advantage of it with the right lineup. And I liked how he wanted to make tweaks. And in this game, second half, the team needed to respond. He got them to respond because that's his job. Get the energy up, get the team to play a certain style and way. So I think from that standpoint, you have nothing to say, but we all know this is an interim manager. This is not a full-time manager. This is not someone who's going to have the job long-term. That's just not a possibility. So you're waiting for the best option. I think what if anything, that this tells us you don't have to rush to hire someone that could be not the right choice. You can trust him to keep this program moving forward, even if it's not the lightning pace that we want this group to be making, but to keep them moving forward until we get the right manager.
I guess one of my questions then would be, and I've got two here for you, Heath, and for everybody else that's listening. Drop us a follow on Twitter as well, ISWT Pod. Is when I think about Anthony Hudson and just his job and caretaker manager, at what point do we want to start to really take this next cycle seriously? Like, we need to start establishing an identity sooner rather than later. Obviously, we gotta hire a coach, but when does that become critical? I assume the summer, because we've got some pretty meaningful games coming up with the Nations League and the Gold Cup, a good chance to be immersed in the group and have some time to be around the group in a meaningful way, which you won't get once the European season starts again, and it's harder to get around the guys in over a longer period of time. So that's one. Second, Heath, against Granada, there was a lot of talk from certain players that Anthony Hudson's letting them play free in the attacking third and letting them try things and being more creative. Clearly a backhanded shot at Greg and maybe how systematic he is in trying to play a certain way. But against El Salvador, a team that was a lot more organized than Granada, I felt like we needed maybe some of those ideas, like a mix of that freedom and having some of those parameters where it's not just, let's just figure it out on the fly. And it felt like maybe we needed a little bit of coaching, and we got it at halftime because it showed. We just had a little bit more urgency. We had Gio a little bit higher. We started to unlock them. They got a little bit tired, and we took our chance and we win the game. But I wonder what that sweet spot is as we go from like, hey, total freedom and no freedom at all. And can we find it? And do we have the group that can solve that in real time when things aren't working? Like finding that plan B if plan A isn't working. Sorry, there's a lot of layers to that. You can just run with it.
I would say, again, like adopting certain games that are part of the modern, certain systems that are part of the modern game now is different to the national team, to the club team, right? Club team, you can work on it every single day in the way in which you want to, I did the Houston Dynamo game last weekend, and the way that they press, you can tell that they spend every day working on a press, whether they're in a high block or mid or a low block. And that's hard in the national team, right? And the national team has a completely different level of egos and players playing in different types of system. A club team, you can build it how you want it. And I know we have specialty type of players, and eventually we're going to have to get to that point, but you also need quality players on the field. I guess my question goes back to both of you. I don't ever remember feeling in any national team coach that I had that I lacked, like, it was always sort of a pessimistic mindset in terms of like being disciplined and being organized was like the number one factor, right? At least from you and I, Jimmy, from a defensive standpoint. And then there was like pick and choose your moments, but it was set in like a smart system versus, maybe being super, super rigid, like where you're not allowed to go forward as a fullback or whatever it is. I always felt that, again, I think that maybe Greg did try to take it too far and make it too rigid,
Okay. Charlie, any comments on that? I mean, there's a lot of shouts in the chat for Hugo Perez being a potential candidate for us. I think he's shown, obviously he's coached a lot of our youth national teams and he's in our National Soccer Hall of Fame for all the great work he did as a player. Really special player, by the way. I wish YouTube and social media had been around when he was going. I think we'd be looking at him a lot different as a proper legend that he is. And we've had him on the show before, and he's said some very insightful things. Do you feel like they should at least listen to what he has to say about what he could do with our full national team? Because there is something he's getting a lot out of that group in El Salvador that makes him difficult to break down.
Well, I think he should be a candidate for sure. But more importantly, this is a coach and a former player who should be a manager in Major League Soccer.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to see him do that.
This is I think the next step for him. And if he had success in MLS, then he'd be, I think, a real candidate to get the U.S. men's national team job. But it still boggles my mind that he's not one of the first names linked to a job. If there's, whether a manager is shaky, for instance, Minnesota has been a team that's, Kansas City, I know Peter Vermees just signed an extension, but they're not looking like they're going in any positive direction. So you're looking at some of these clubs and you're saying they could really use a new manager. Miami, another one that I think Hugo Perez could do a terrific job in, especially if you're talking about some culture, Latin culture. Hugo Perez is your man. Someone who's proven, who can develop young talent and give them opportunities. It's a no-brainer. So for me, it's more of a Hugo Perez should be getting MLS jobs, and they should be coming at him, flying at him, and let him decide which one makes the most sense. But in terms of U.S. men's national team, I don't know if he is the one, but certainly a candidate considering the people that have been talked about being linked with this job.
Hey, Heath, I don't know if you picked up on that, but Charlie just called Phil Neville a gringo. All right. Now, the other Nations League games that are going on, from what I understand, U.S. will play Mexico in one of the semifinals, but the other one's still up for grabs. We have Costa Rica hosting Panama. Costa Rica has 6 points. Panama has 7. So Costa Rica has to win tomorrow night to book another spot in the semifinals. Panama just needs a draw to make that happen. And then you have Canada hosting Honduras. They're both on 6 points in their group, and Canada just needs a draw, obviously, to go through, and Honduras needs to win to make that happen. So we could have a Canada-Costa Rica semifinal, or we could have a mixture of any of those 4 teams, but pretty exciting times. And I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm excited that we got Mexico, not only in the Nations League, but also in a friendly. That's the next time the U.S. are going to play. It'll be April 19th. It'll be a friendly, and that will be a lot of fun.
That's a non-fixture date, though, right? Like that's
yes, I believe it's going to be MLS centric or domestic centric players in that one. So we're like flip flopping January camp to Nations League to friendlies to Nations League again, and it should be interesting to see. That's a conundrum for Anthony Hudson as we continue to develop and broaden our player pool. All right, final thoughts, Chuck. You know what? Out of respect for your glorious watch and this trailer that you're driving in right now, I'm going to come to you first on final thoughts.
I'm just happy to be here.
We got run for office. When are you going to run for mayor, Boston, dude? When is that happening?
We got the job done. We're in the Nations League semifinals, so
job done.
I look forward to that.
2 games, 2 wins. Heath, what about you?
I'd like to start a campaign for this group. And everybody who watches our show to get out to the Nations League semifinals and finals. Be there in person.
In Vegas.
In Vegas. Maybe hit the tour on the Gold Cup as well. Like, we just bring a big old army with us everywhere we go and have a good time.
Let's go.
That would be pretty sick. I would be all for that. So we're going to leave it there on that high note with Heath, who's trying to will all of that into existence. So let that happen. We're talking to you, Producer Des and Producer Alex. All right, we're done. Thank you for listening and watching in Soccer We Trust. As always, we'll see you on Thursday for the next show as we talk about even more stuff that we like to talk about, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. See you then. Later.